Hi, I'm Shaun from My Mental Health. And for the month of May, for Mental Health Awareness Month, we are interviewing mental health advocates. Today, we have on Jenn Kautsch, who, and her Instagram handle is at Sober Sis. She's the founder of Sober Sis. She's a sober minded coach and author of Look Alive Sis, also does sober sis retreats, and she's really helping sober curious women have a mindset and tools to drink less or not at all. And we're so excited to have her on here. She's a huge help to women really entering to that sober curious. She has a really proactive approach before it gets too bad. She's your woman, and we're just so happy to have her on here. So, Jen, if you want to introduce yourself again, or if you want to just get into your experience, strength, and hope, go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, thank you, Shaun, for having me on. And just it's fun getting to know you better today and just encouraging other people on this journey of just ultimately becoming the best version of ourselves and being wholehearted, sober-minded, and like you mentioned, heart's desire. And my goal is to help women along the drinking spectrum who may be starting to identify, hey, I used to just drink socially and take it or leave it. And now that wine o'clock, that 5 o'clock, that is starting to really kick in, and it's starting to feel like it did in my own experience, like becoming a habit that's turned into a routine that then turns into a crutch. And that's where I was in my own relationship with drinking, but fortunately got an early exit off the drinking highway, if you will. But I do think it's a highway that's heading in one direction. So no matter where you are on the drinking spectrum, I think it's never too early to change your relationship with alcohol, and it's never too late. So I'm kind of working in that gray area, middle zone, where women are still able to be sober curious and maybe even just want to take a break or try out an alcohol free lifestyle just for long enough to get clarity, which is what I needed. I didn't have a drinking problem as much as I did, but as much as I had a thinking problem. I really did. And so
Yeah.
I love that what y'all are all about and just talking about mental health awareness and being Mental Health Awareness Month. Our mindset and our beliefs and our thoughts are ultimately what dictate our emotions and our feelings inside that end up driving our choices, our behaviors, and our patterns. And so I don't think we're broken. I don't think we're broken people. If you've struggled with addiction, substance abuse, or just this slippery slope of like, woo, during the pandemic, I started drinking more. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? If that's you out there, I'm all about progress, not perfection. And just that we're not broken, our pattern is broken. And really, our brains are working as they should with addictive substances. It hooks us in, and then before we know it, we're like, how did I get here? And I think it's rewinding, going from the behavior to the emotions and the feelings, and then ultimately our thinking. And that's why I think mental health is so important, and navigating anxiety and stress and celebration and boredom and all the things.
I love how you break it down in such a logical thing. We're not broken. Our thinking pattern and our brains are just actually working to an addictive substance. I absolutely love that. Now, I've watched a ton of your videos, and I just want to ask, why do you enjoy helping women find their path on this journey in this gray area, or if they do have a drinking problem? I'm sure it comes from your experience or something like that.
Oh, for sure, Shaun. When I was stuck in what I've come to call the detox to retox loop, because I
Okay.
was the mom that was super healthy by day, getting it all done, running my little errands, having my green juice at lunch, serving my family, serving my kids, just being everything to everybody, that's when I really started to lose my self-care and a lot of my mental health. And I never understood that mental health is just like any other health. We have physical health, we have emotional health, we have all the healths, and that mental health is a huge part of that. So I'm passionate about helping women who are really struggling with a divided mind, because that was me. One person by day, another person by night. Sober minded, present, awake, alert, aware by day, and mindless by nighttime. Where is my reward? Where's my time as a mom, as a wife, as someone that was giving, 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 and doing all the right things? It felt like my reward to come out a little bit, check out from the overperforming, over responsible, overthinking. And again, going back to what drives us to behavior that ultimately doesn't serve us. And so I'm passionate because I find that there are so many women in particular that I work with, but this is a human thing. It's a human condition to want to alter the way we feel. It's a human thing to want to change reality for a bit. And
Mhm.
I think the goal that I'm passionate about is helping women go from a divided mind where they're like total mental tug of war, two different people, to having a renewed mind with the right thinking, the right thoughts, right meaning what is true, not what are the lies that we believe in the myths of society around drinking or other substances that are so glamorized and so promoted in our face,
Mhm.
that we can go from a divided mind to a renewed mind to ultimately a sober mind, which is being awake, alert, aware, and present, totally present in our own lives, which I find to be extremely brave and courageous in the society that we live in, because most people are not present in their own life 24/7. And I think Brene Brown says it best, you can't selectively numb. So when we numb one thing, we're really numbing everything. So when I was numbing my anxiety or my loneliness or my anger or frustration, or even thinking I could enhance an experience, I was ultimately numbing the joy, the resilience, the ability to do hard things. And I was starting to outsource a lot of my confidence and resilience to a liquid, to a drink that really didn't care about me at all. And it's really, really something to be sober minded now on this journey.
That's amazing. As a woman and a sober mom and a sober wife, I've been sober for 12 years. So I'm very fortunate. I did an experience. I got sober and then I developed a life. Although I do identify with, even in sobriety, what you're talking about. It's still thinking. Like I took away the drink, but I still need to work constantly on myself, be present and serve my family. But I totally identify with it, even just as a sober woman and a sober
Absolutely.
mom. And personally, I've been on a very big spiritual journey for the last 2 years. I had a lot of blockages of feeling joy, exactly what you're saying. And I feel like it took me how many years to peel the onion, right?
Yeah.
I keep getting more and more honest with myself and was just like, I'm operating out of like a trauma response really in my relationships. So I really had to do a lot of work. And I think it's great that you've developed a program to help you with this. Now, personally, how do you stay in that presence every day? Could you give us some tips on what little things that you do to help you stay present in your sobriety?
Yeah. Well, that is a great question. And you're right. It's not always easy. It is not always easy, but it is always worth it. I've
Mm,
never woken up the next day and regretted not drinking. Never woken up and been like, oh, I wished I would have had those margaritas at the Mexican food restaurant and beyond. So for me, I do have some tools in my sober minded toolbox that I have found has worked for me. I just celebrated 7 years of alcohol free living. And it is huge. And I actually was a little bit, here's a little bit more about my story. I was actually a little bit later in life to the drinking habit. I didn't really start drinking on a regular basis until my young 30s. I didn't drink at all really in high school, college, and barely in my 20s. A drink here, a drink there. I could definitely take it or leave it. I was more of a leave it. I didn't like the way it tasted. I didn't like the way it made me feel. That was to come. And to me, it looked out of control. It looked like, whoa, I'm a little older. I'm turning 53 this summer. And so for me, back in the early 90s, totally dating myself for anyone in my season of life, because I am in my 50s. So I'm an 80s kid. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was in college and whatnot, there were no Ubers, there were no cell phones. So honestly, watching friends get drunk at a frat party or just have one too many and throwing up in the bathroom and thinking, how would you get home? For me, my little rule following self was like, oh no, I'm good. And so that's why I think it's so sneaky if drinking creeps into your life at a different life stage, maybe as a new mom with the wine o'clock mommy juice culture really coming in
Mhm.
strong, which it did for me about 20 years ago. Or I work with a lot of empty nesters, women who are hitting that next phase in life where they've got more time, they've got more
Mhm.
disposable income, they are just here to just relax a little bit. And that culture is a
Mhm.
major drinking culture. And they are going into sometimes grandmotherhood, and their adult children are saying, hey, mom, cut it out a little bit before you watch my kids. Could you
Mhm.
imagine? Right? I can, because I was heading that way. So I didn't really start drinking on a habitual, social, regular basis. Storms rolling in, crack a bottle. Maybe I was just cooking in my kitchen. Maybe it was book club, date night, networking. It just started to become a daily
Mhm.
experience, a daily opportunity to drink. But usually in the evenings, I could wait until 5 o'clock. But that was me in my 30s. And then in my 40s is when I started to really recognize, hey, this is getting where now I crave it. And if I don't have it, I feel like I'm missing something. Versus before I was drinking, I never felt like I was missing it. I never felt like something was I was being deprived or
Mhm.
left out. And so I forgot what got me on that tangent, but you were just kind of asking.
I think it was, just
Oh,
staying,
my tools. The
yes, the
tools in the
tools,
sober minded
tools.
toolbox. That's right. And so my young to mid 40s, boy, howdy dowdy, was I in the pitcher plant. I was raising teenagers at the time, and drinking was definitely where I was turning in the evenings for my reward, my me time, sometimes my emotional mental armor, if you will. Here we are
Mm.
talking about mental health month. I actually used what drinking could do for me in the short term as a bit of armor. Like, your rejection, it can't hurt me because I can't feel it as much. And you're fighting with the kids or getting in the triangle of parenting with a spouse who I dearly love. We're about to celebrate 29 years of marriage this month. 29. I know you're about to have an
Yay.
anniversary too. But our parenting years were really intense. So for me, I needed tools that were practical. I needed, it is 5 o'clock, and the kids maybe are fighting, or I am feeling like mom rejection. And that was new to me because I thought, well, how can I feel rejection from my teenagers? Of course, that's their job.
Mhm.
But for me personally, it just felt really wounding and isolating. And a lot of moms weren't talking about that. A lot of moms were just talking about, let's get together for drinks. I was like all
Mhm.
in. I was a ringleader. And so I needed tools to help me change. And one of the tools was pre deciding. I started learning how to take my good intentions from that morning and literally help them work for me when I needed them most in the evening. And a lot of that was through pre planning. Instead of
Mhm.
getting my easy stuff done in the morning and saving my hard stuff for late afternoon or wine o'clock, grocery shopping, what am I going to cook for dinner? I was running into decision fatigue like crazy. And then if I was trying to also battle not having a drink, I was like, forget it. I cannot make another decision. In fact, I want a drink to help slow it down. So I would make a lot of my heavier decisions and maybe even go to the grocery store, practically speaking, in the morning when my resilience was higher and my intentions were still good, that I could follow through.
Mm.
And so I started pre-deciding and then pre-planning. If I'm not going to drink tonight, what am I going to do? What is my plan? I think too often we get in those situations and we just lean on willpower. And
Yeah.
you and I both know willpower totally fatigues. It is limited. It gives out. And it did not work for me. Some of the tools I tried that didn't work were willpower, a deprivation mindset, just white knuckle it and just like grit my teeth and like, I can do this. But like I was not enjoying my life and it was just building up this release valve that was going to go back
Mm.
to like more drinking. And so I think knowing that, just knowing that about yourself, and again, that you're not broken, your pattern's broken. So what can you do with your pattern? What if we took drinking out, but we put something else in that was healthy, that was positive, that was pre-planned? So I started finding NA, non-alcoholic beverages that I was excited about, whether that's, and again, you do you out there. If that works for you, great. If
Yeah.
that does
Yeah.
not work for you, well, then don't do
Mhm.
that. But even a sparkling water with
Mhm.
some lime in a pretty glass could
Mhm.
do the trick. And so I had to pre-plan. But what helped me the most from a really a mental health perspective and just having those tools was I started playing the movie forward. I talk about this in my free guide. It's totally free to y'all if you go to sobersis.com. Just that's an easy one to remember. I
Mhm.
have a free guide to help at 1 o'clock, and that's one of my best tools is playing the movie forward because I believe God gave us an amazing, immense amount of imagination. We are creatures created that can literally take our past experience and forecast ahead what we think might happen based on some history. And so my history told me that if I opened a bottle of Pinot Grigio at 5 o'clock, the chances of me drinking one glass, which were my intentions, it was never going to happen. Once I got going with drinking, that's just the nature of the beast. Your tolerance rises, and so as your tolerance rises, so does your dependency to get the same effect. So one drink, it just wasn't going to cut it. It was almost like just an appetizer to get the party started. So I knew that once I opened for example, a bottle of wine and I put it in my fridge side door so it could be on the down low. Once I opened that, the chances of me being able to navigate that one glass were slim to none because I would want two. And if I had two, well, I might even want three because if I'm gonna, I call it the bottle breakdown. If I'm gonna open a bottle and have one glass at 5, well, then it's just 5:30 when I'm done. It's still so early in the night to pace out a whole glass all night long. Not gonna happen. So I had to play the movie forward and know that if I opened that bottle, the chances of doing the bottle breakdown, of having the whole bottle, I was like, well, how did this happen? To go into drinking as a later in life drinker and realize I could polish off a whole bottle of wine on a given evening. It could take me 3 or 4 hours. I'm pacing myself. If you would have told me that in my 20s, that in my 40s, I would be able to drink a bottle of wine just in my own home while I'm cooking and cleaning and helping kids with homework, I would have been like, what? No way. How could I even stand up? How could I even walk? Oh, I was fine. I was high functioning because it's crazy how over time it does the number on us. So I needed tools, and playing the movie forward in a negative way and in a positive way really changed things for me because obviously negative, if I played the movie forward and I started the night with drinking, the chances are I would have more than I wanted. And then I would go to bed a little bit numbed out, buzzing through life. And then I would wake up at 3 a.m. We all know the
Mm.
dreaded 3 a.m. wake up call, the one that's like dry mouth, racing heartbeat, heightened anxiety, and a feeling of dread. Oh no, I did it again. I was just going to have a glass. What happened? Well, I know what happened, and I know what will happen if I set myself up to do that again. And then, of course, the next morning, you're trying to save face, get it together, go do the detox to retox loop again. And it was exhausting. And I'm even just talking about as a quote, gray area drinker, because I could
Mhm.
stop. I could stop for days or weeks at a time, but I
Mm,
would always go back to the same cycle, the same loop. So it doesn't matter if you're drinking a little bit every day or binging on the weekends or taking a month off and doing a challenge like mine or a whole 30. If you don't go to the root of the thinking, you're going to go back to the same cycle because it's
mm,
just behavior modification. And that's what I did. I was like a yo-yo drinker. Instead of a yo-yo dieter, I was like a yo-yo drinker because I could stop, start, stop, start. And that was even at times more excruciating than just being
mm,
like, I can't even stop. I could stop. And that's even made it more frustrating and confusing because I was constantly in management mode. I was managing. Some people call it moderating. I was managing. And so the tools of pre-deciding, pre-planning, playing the movie forward, it can go positive as well. If I have that sparkling water with lime, then maybe take a lap around the block with my dogs instead of just numb out in front of Netflix, what will the results be? Well, I'm probably going to
mm.
sleep better. If I wake up at 3 a.m., I can go back to sleep because I don't have all that craziness. I just have regular crazy. And then I can get up the next morning and not feel that shame and that remorse and regret. I can just get going with my day. So both can be, it can be hard, but like pick your hard because it was going to be easier for me to have none than to try to have one. And I know that many of the people listening and seeing this would totally agree. But I think when you're in that gray area zone, you can go either way. And so you've
Yeah.
really got to make a conscious, intentional choice, which is why I talk so much about being sober minded.
I'm really loving this because I watch your videos and I'm a sober person and I'm in recovery for 12 years. And I really have not had this put this way. And my experience is completely different than yours. I was hardcore drugs and I got sober at 20 and then 21. But I can completely relate with the unmanageability and
Yes.
trying to manage. How I think back, I was very young, but even trying to just manage simple life on life's terms things, and my drug use or my drinking would get in the way. And one of your tools, playing the movie forward, or that's one of my favorite tools too in my recovery, is I haven't heard it put though in a positive light. I could always play it negatively. I'd be like, I drink tonight, I'm not going to remember tomorrow morning. I'm going to feel
Right.
terrible. I'm going to get fired from my job again. So I could
Right.
play that. But to play like positive spin on it, that could just be as a sober person, I could use
Yeah.
that
Really
now. Like
motivating.
I just joined CrossFit. Oh,
Oh, good for you.
so I'm really trying to get more physically fit and just feel stronger. And before I go to CrossFit, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's
It's
terrible.
hardcore.
But after I leave and I feel great, and that's kind of like playing the tape forward or taking a
Yeah.
walk or playing with your kids. I'm feeling bad. Oh, I just want to scroll on my phone. I don't want to pay attention. But if I play the tape forward in a positive
Yeah.
manner, that's a really useful tool. And anybody in sobriety, anybody in
Totally.
life.
In life. Right. These are life hacks.
Oh,
I've found if we focus more on what we're gaining than what we're losing, it's so much more empowering. And when I first stopped drinking, I felt like I was being pushed a little bit by some negative internal more than external realities. Again, if I had continued on, I'm sure my internal world as it was combusting would have gone more into my external world. But inside I was a mess. On the outside, I still look good. So that was, it was a bit, I didn't mean
yeah.
to, but it was a bit more of a facade than I realized after I started digging and doing the work. But when we focus more on what we're gaining, not what we're losing, then it becomes just so much more empowering. And like I was saying, beginning of changing my relationship with alcohol, I felt kind of pushed, like I should do this. And then what happened with a little bit of time and practice is I started being pulled forward and like, I must do this. I get to do this. Not I should, but I must. I've heard Tony Robbins talk about that. And I
Mhm.
love it because it's that mindset of like, I'd rather be pulled forward and going towards something positive than being pushed constantly by something negative. And again, it's a reframe. We're reframing our mindset. And I just think that's more empowering. I think being alcohol free for me is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not one of the hardest. What happened to you? No, I happened to it. I got to decide. And again, wherever you are on the drinking spectrum, it's still ultimately our choice. We have to partner. And as a person of faith myself, I believe we get to partner with God. I think he's not just sitting over there going, well, I can put a magic wand down and do all the work for you. I think it really turns into a partnership where I'm letting go, but also leaning on the power of God in my life. He is my true, I guess you could call it crutch, because we all need a place to land and we all need something to put our ladder up against that's not going to move. And so I have found the Lord to be that for me. And I found him to be that for me before I started drinking, while I was drinking, and now not drinking. But in the drinking years, it was almost like I knew he was there and not changing his unconditional love for me, but I'd moved my ladder and started leaning my ladder on something that was constantly changing and moving. He didn't move, I did. And I moved my ladder to lean up against a substance that
Mhm.
was rickety at best.
And on my spiritual journey for the last 12 years and getting sober, I think that in recovery or when you're sober or when you're alcohol free, sometimes you're not doing esteemable acts. Sometimes like, you are constantly losing your self esteem to the substance, right? Like you're letting something like a substance control your life. I personally think it's important for having some kind of faith in a higher power. It doesn't have to be God. It can be good orderly direction. It can just be the universe. It can be the sun and the moon. When I got sober, I really needed something to lean on
Yeah,
and give up some what you're talking about with being pulled towards something positive instead
right.
of something negative. And I believe spirituality has really given me that power to manifest, to keep going, to let
Absolutely.
go of that willpower control. And I love that you have that faith. It's not, some people don't, and that's fine. And I personally believe that recovery is a personal thing. And it's taken me years with
Mhm.
finding my own place in spirituality, and it's gone up and down. But I love that. And I'm interested a little bit more on, you would have never thought that that person you were looking at in your 20s and you became this person in your 40s, because it's like a personal, you feel like you're failing. I can identify with
Absolutely.
that. I just think that's so incredible that you were able to reflect back and look forward and you were like, this is not me.
Right. Because I had contrast. I knew what it was like to live. Sorry for background noise. I knew what it was like to live alcohol free, substance free for a pretty long time of my adult years. And so for me, the cognitive dissonance and the misalignment, I felt completely unaligned. In fact, I'll tell you, when I first started drinking, when I think I was 32, we do have flip flop stories and yet have ended up in a lot of the same place, which I think is really cool. Both you and I think, are really coming from different places, but are at the same place going, faith's important to me, being sober minded. How can I stay present? What are the tools I can still use? We're kind of there. And that's kind of where I had lived in my 20s somewhat. I think just age and experience helped me grow into like, but in my 20s, I did encounter challenges and hard things, and I didn't look for the eject button. It was not my go to think, wow, this is really hard. I got married at 24, had a miscarriage pretty on in the pregnancy when
Mm,
I was maybe 26. The thought of drinking or numbing or checking out didn't even occur to me. It wasn't even like, oh, this is so hard or painful. What can I do to get out of my body? It was like, wow, I'm
mm.
in my body. And this is really painful mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the things. But what I had found in my 20s that I reflect back on now and want to have in my 50s is the ability to go through things instead of, I took a step there in my 30s and 40s where I started learning to go around things, go under things, over things instead of through things. But I'd had enough base of like, wait, I can do hard things. What am I doing? And so misalignment for me probably helped me get back to my true self, my real essence, faster than someone who maybe didn't even have that contrast or didn't have a major wake up call early on. I
Mhm.
could have drug this on forever. No pun
Yeah.
intended. I really could have kept drinking at the rate and way I was drinking for probably years more because it was still in that gray area zone. But all it takes is something like a pandemic or a major loss or a huge financial crisis or something that can take someone's seemingly normal, if you will, relationship with
Yes.
drinking and catapult you into the category of like, oh my gosh, I've lost control. And I
Mhm.
can see how that can happen to anyone and that it's not a moral failure. I thought it was. You mentioned that. Oh my gosh, for me, I was a married mom when I started drinking.
Mhm.
So the shame and the pain and the oh
Mhm.
my gosh, this is not what a good mom does. And the learning curve. Imagine starting to drink, really start your drinking career in your young 30s when most of your peers and girls' night friends and other married couples, well, they did already do that in their younger days. They're not sick in a parking lot because they overdid it at a
Yes.
restaurant on a date night while you were paying a babysitter. That happened to me when I was 35 because I didn't know my limits yet. I didn't know the rules of drinking. So that was super embarrassing and immediately started a lot of the hiding and posturing. I really like how this makes me feel, but I can't show that too much. I was
Mhm.
really in a lot of the social constructs of like a good wife, a good mom, a good adult behaves this way with alcohol.
Yes.
And our society says drink, 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 but don't talk about any of the negative consequences or side effects. And so I was like, I'm having those and nobody's talking about those. So I guess I just need to learn how to drink better. That was me in my 30s. I've just got to get on board this train and build up some tolerance, work at it. I literally tried to become a better drinker in my 30s and it caught up with me in my 40s.
Wow. That's no,
It's
and
kind of a
I
unique story, perhaps. I
no,
mean,
it
others that
is.
have it because I've worked with enough women now to know that even if one person is hearing me and she's like, oh my gosh, that's my story. I started drinking when the kids graduated high school.
Mm.
Well, I get that. My kids were graduating high school when I finally quit, but I understand.
One of my close friends, she's recently a year sober, and her story is very similar to yours. You really could leave it and growing up, and now I think she is 30 and she same similar stuff. And I relate with so I've been working on like in therapy and I've been in hypnotherapy this year and all this stuff. And
Cool.
my core wound, I would say, was there's something wrong with me. So I did not like being if I did make a mistake, I didn't like being the bad person because then I
Oh,
would
right.
just be the bad person, right? So I couldn't really separate I made a mistake from my core wound of
You
you
are.
are a mistake. So I've
Yeah.
really learned in the
Mm,
last couple of years with a lot of help and support. That's a statement that I've been telling myself, and it's not
yeah.
true. It's okay to make a mistake as a human. I just that's
That's good.
incredible. I have most of the interviews that I've been doing, I keep encountering this. Like, what's the hardest thing that you've gone through in sobriety and made it through?
Oh, well, that's a great question. In 7 years, I've certainly been through some life during that time. Well, there's your basic kids moving, my kids
Mhm.
graduating high school and moving out of state, trips to the emergency room with the same kids that are breaking bones. Those things have been challenging. But to be perfectly honest, what comes up for me personally is the work I do in SoberSys, actually becoming I would say SoberSys is more like a ministry. I know y'all are a nonprofit. I would love to say that I was, but I am a for-profit business only in an effort to scale my mission and message. So I have been catapulted, if you will, I use that word twice today, must be a word, at 47 years old into entrepreneurship, a social media presence that I had none of before I was 47. Now, I had owned my own business with my husband. We've had retail stores and I've done some home-based business type stuff, but this was next level to have a team and be a leader of a community and learn technology just to even be able to do what I do at my age. Again, not to just make myself seem old, but at 47 to pick up Instagram and be like, I need to make a reel today. What's that? And just all the pressures that come with being in this spot, which is a wonderful spot to be in, and I'm so honored and so privileged to be in it and to have this life calling, really this special, I feel like, assignment. Talk about a God assignment. I feel like
Mhm.
once I discovered freedom, once I awakened to freedom, just from alcohol, but all the other parts of my life, because alcohol was just the lead domino. It
Yes.
really wasn't the issue. There was the thing beneath the thing. And my thing seemingly was alcohol, but not really. It was all the things beneath the thing.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
that's, as you well know, because I've done my share of therapy and counseling and all kinds of inner work as well, to get to the thing beneath the thing, and then also try to impact and influence others and change the world globally, help women drink less or not at all, working with my husband, picking up the technology, running a team, the pressure. Honestly, it's funny because some nights I get off a sober sis call that was so invigorating, so encouraging, and I'm just like, wow, I would never be doing this, number one, if I were drinking. But then ironically, some of the very things that would in the past cause me to want to drink are the very things that I encounter now on a daily basis: anxiety, stress, pressure. How are you going to handle that? So that's why it's constant work. No one's arrived. Definitely, even though I'm trying to coach other women and lead women down the same journey I've been on, even if theirs is different, it's not because I've arrived and I've got it all figured out and look at me and I'm as perfect over here. It is a daily choice to remain present in my own life, go through things, not over, around, or under it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's just really hard to sit in the fields and just feel the feelings. Every time I do, I'm rewarded on the other side, and it's worth it. So,
Yeah.
ironically, doing sober, sis, is my
No, that's,
answer.
what, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. In sobriety, I've done a lot of
Really put yourself
hard,
out there, gone out of
yeah,
your comfort zone.
yeah, you do. And I think being sober and sober minded, you're able to take such a positive perspective, right? Or not even positive, a different perspective. Like you just said, I stretch myself daily to get me out of my comfort zone and help other people. You're like,
Voice.
that's,
Yeah, which
it's,
some days you just want to go back to being small again and playing small. But
yeah.
once you've expanded and once you've grown, you have to keep going forward. There is no neutral. I'm old enough to know that. There's no neutral. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. There's just no neutral. There's moments for sure for rest, and I think that that's when I was drinking. What I was ultimately looking for was a place of rest, when really I was settling for relief. I was like, just give it to me. I need a buzz right now for 20 minutes, and I'm going to chase it all night long. That's relief, but that's not real rest. And so I'm learning and continue to learn how to rest, even resting in the work, even learning to rest while you're working. God's showing me more how to do that too. And boy, is it a work in progress over here.
That is incredible. I think you're dead on with that. Looking like when you're in drinking and using, you are
Yes.
looking for some type of relief, right?
Relief.
And
Yes.
or rest. I really identified with the rest part too, like relief and rest. And because you don't have, there's something inside you that is just not allowing you to. I completely identify, and that was put perfectly. So I I would love to know where we can find you. I know I've said it a couple times, but say it again because I would love your message. It's very different,
Yeah.
and I love that. Learning new perspectives in sobriety and learning new ways to cope and
Right.
do
We're all
right.
just trying to cope and stay present and not eject out of our own life and find rest, not relief. Keep it simple.
So tell us where we can
Yeah.
find you. What's your next little endeavor? You do a lot. So spit it
Yeah.
all out there, please.
Oh, awesome. Yes. So Shaun mentioned at the beginning, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm really active on that platform. It's just at SoberSis, one word. And of course, I've got my little link tree with all my links there. But if you just want to check out my website, just go to sobersis.com. There I have a free guide. I've been on many podcasts over the years. And then I recently wrote a book. It's back here. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Look Alive Sis, and it's 40 days to awaken your sober mind. So it's like 40 short stories, if you will, 40 short sober minded seeds to plant in your mind. So it's perfect for someone who's maybe sober curious, wanting to toe dip in the lifestyle of if you're in that gray area trying to drink less. And it's perfect for someone like yourself who's already well on the journey and just needs encouragement. So that was a fun project. And every month I run a 21-day reset challenge. It's currently starting at the beginning of every month. So no matter when you're seeing this or hearing this, if you go to sobersis.com, you can find out when my next challenge is. And that's what I do is talk in practical terms like this. But Shaun, I'll leave you with this. What I've really found is the antidote to addiction is connection. And so, connection with like minded people, people who also have maybe felt broken but realize, wait, I'm not broken. Who else feels that way? Who else is just wanting to be honest but doesn't necessarily want to wear a label? You want to be honest and you want to have conversation where you can get those practical tools. That's a lot of what I do in my 21-day reset challenge, which I have found is really truly just the beginning. We're just scraping the surface. Dog barking on cue at the end. Mailman. And that's what I found is that the 21 days is truly just to get the ball rolling, but there's so much more, as you and I both know who have been on the journey for a while. You can't take 21 years of habits or beliefs and
Mhm.
change them in 21 days, but I can help women change the way they look at alcohol forever.
And you do sober minded coaching too, right?
Yes, I do everything in my group. And so if women join that 21-day reset challenge, even if you're already alcohol free, if you're listening, you're like, wait, I'm already a sober person. Can I join? That if you're looking to be more a part of just this kind of conversation and pay it forward and encourage others, everyone comes in through the 21-day reset challenge. But I have a network of, gosh, it's probably close to 12, 15,000 women in that network that are communicating on a daily basis, as much as they want or as little as they want. And it's a news feed. I've got all my content housed in there, and I also do live video coaching sessions in there for the group. So there's just a lot of resource out there. I'm pretty much dedicated my whole life to this now. It's something I'm so passionate about, even these years later. How can I bring more women into the conversation, show real connection, and then help people feel empowered?
Well, even from this short conversation, I'm feeling empowered.
Oh, good. Mission accomplished, right? That's what we're
Yes,
doing
I
day by
am.
day.
I'm sure anybody who else watches this video is going to be very empowered. I'd like to thank you again so much for coming on for mental health awareness. And I'm so glad we got to connect.
Yeah,
You're
me too.
absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for coming on.